No one blows the whistle on Donald Trump quite like Donald Trump.
And by the way, likewise, China should start an investigation into the Bidens, because what happened in China is just about as bad as what happened with Ukraine.
Donald Trump's defense about colluding with foreign governments for his presidential campaign has gone from "I didn't do it" to "I would do it again" to "Okay, everybody, watch me do it." After committing that crime on live TV today, Donald Trump told reporters that he had not previously asked President Xi to investigate his political rival. But CNN is reporting tonight that Donald Trump raised the subjects of Joe Biden and Elizabeth Warren during a phone call with the Chinese president on June 18th. And Donald Trump said in that phone call, promised that he would stay quiet on Hong Kong protests for freedom while trade talks continued with China. According to CNN, the record of that call was also placed in that highly secure server where the transcript of his call with the Ukrainian president still sits. Joining us now is John Harwood, the editor-at-large for CNBC, and Joyce Vance, former U.S. attorney and MSNBC legal analyst. And Joyce, I want to go straight to you for a legal opinion on what Donald Trump did today and what he said.
Well, Donald Trump built a very compelling criminal case against himself today, excuse me, confessing on national television to committing campaign finance crimes. But, you know, Lawrence, you make this point, and it's important to remember Congress doesn't need an actual violation of federal law or of criminal law. What they're looking for is a high crime and misdemeanor. I think it's just sort of the ultimate nuance from this president who can't seem to do anything to save himself, that he would actually commit crimes in public and appear to be proud of it.
John, and now it's China.
It's China. And I do think of the two things that happened today, learning that he told Xi that he would keep quiet about Hong Kong during the trade talks is actually more freshly damning than what he said on the White House lawn. This is open corruption of the presidency of the United States. On the one hand, we have someone who is so focused on himself and his own interests that he solicits assistance on his campaign rivals. But in the case of Hong Kong, he's essentially selling off the commitment to freedom by the United States in order to get something through this trade deal process. There's no particular indication that the trade deal that he gets is going to be anything that changes the lives of Americans in a substantial way. But the very idea that he's so focused on his own personal accomplishments that he would sell out the moral commitments of the United States in such a straightforward way is kind of stunning.
It's such an important point that John just made, Joyce. And the other thing I think that we know about Donald Trump is he absolutely does not care about the freedom of people in Hong Kong. And so the idea that his would be the voice standing up for them is hard to imagine, even if he wasn't trying to get some kind of trade deal with China. But that makes him the very first president in history who would side with China against protesters like this.
Well, this president is no friend to anyone's civil rights, whether it's domestic or foreign. And to John's point and your point, this makes it all the more critical that the American public, that congressional investigators have access to full transcripts from these calls. We need to know what our president has been saying. That conduct needs to be assessed. And it's so extraordinarily suspicious that these memcoms, that these memos of conversation would be filed rather than as they would routinely and normally be filed for the president's classification system, that they've been put on this code word server, which is an entirely different sort of process. It looks more like hiding these transcripts than it looks like filing them. And it's something that we really need to have brought to the forefront. Those transcripts will be the best evidence of these conversations.
And Lawrence, you talked before the break about Republicans and John Hallman talked about Republicans not willing to talk. I experienced some of that today. I had a text exchange with one congressman, said, can you talk for a minute? He says, what about? I said, Trump, Ukraine. And he ghosted me for the rest of the day.
Right.
Talked to another one who said, well, I kind of wish he hadn't said what he said. Poor choice of words, but it's not a crime. Which is the distinction that Joyce referred to a moment ago. Not necessary for impeachment, but that's the line they're staying on the other side of. But I think it's going to be harder for Republican politicians to defend the sacrifice of the interests of people in Hong Kong, protesters in Hong Kong. And that broke late in the day. I'll bet some Republicans feel obliged to talk about that.
Let's take a quick look at Joni Ernst. A lot of these members are not in Washington right now. Senator Joni Ernst in Iowa. Reporters didn't really catch up with her, but voters did. Let's listen to how that went.
Whistleblowers should be protected. Please let folks out there know.
And our president shouldn't be threatening them, and he also should not be encouraging other countries to investigate his political rivals.
I would say to that, corruption, no matter where it is, should be ferreted out. I don't care where it is. I don't care who it is. When it is, corruption is corruption, and it should be combated.
But it's okay for our president to exhort other countries to
okay, we're going to move on to another question, but what I would say is we can't determine that yet.
So, John, if you want to get a question in, you're going to have to get out of Washington this week to go find them. John Harwood, Joyce Vance, thank you both for joining us tonight. Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on the button below for more from The Last Word and the rest of MSNBC.